Hello, I'm here with Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-creator and father of NLP, and it's been an honor for me to be here in Orlando for already probably 10, 12 years at the least or more, and now I have the chance to talk with him again. And I would like you to have a little conversation about one of the books that probably changed more my mind about communication and about NLP, and it was Persuasion Engineering. And that was, I was counting before, and it was 20 years ago when I read the book. And in that moment, I couldn't imagine that one day I would write my own book and it would have you forward there. And one of the things that it created more impact on me on that book, it was the part of the importance of listening to the person and analyzing what is going on inside the mind. Because in a lot of persuasion books, it's about you talking and being very smart talking, but not listening to the other person.
Well, if you have a canned approach where you are pitching or persuading with the same thing and not listening, there'll only be a certain percentage of people that you can communicate with. Whereas if you are able to adapt and respond to what they're talking about, then your close ratio goes up. If you're a salesperson, the number of employees that you can get to function efficiently goes up. So to me, it's the smart thing to do. And when I wrote the book, at that time, because when I was trying, you could get a business degree in marketing. There wasn't much, now there's all kinds of business things you can do, but especially things about persuasion and sales were thought of as manipulative, and it was a psychological thing. And most of the big sales training programs were designed by psychologists of one kind or another. And they were busy categorizing people rather than listening and responding and adjusting themselves and packaging their information so that it was cognitively easier to understand.
One of the things that I quote in the book, in Conscious Persuasion, is one of your quotes that I like a lot, that it says, statistics talk about 1,000 people, but never talk about you, the person that you have in front. And one of the things I wanted to point out in the book, and it was almost a tribute to that book written with John Laval and you, it's the part of the more we know about the person in front of us, the more we understand the map, the way that it probably makes decisions, that person, the easiest to get to the world, that internal world of that person, and more efficient is everything, sales or just persuasion.
Yeah, there's a real difference between engineering communication and splattering communication. And to me, I want communicators to think of themselves as an engineering. The rules of building bridges don't change, but they change. But every time you build a bridge, it's going to be different. And the same thing is true about every individual communication. The more you understand how they understand, the more you can package and tailor your communication so that it's easier for them to make a good and quick decision and to modify bad decisions, because a lot of what persuasion about is getting people to stop doing the wrong thing. And there's that old adage where somebody says to me, well, I've been doing it this way for years. That doesn't make it the best you can do. It just makes it what you were doing for 20 years, and you could do it for 20 more, or you can make better decisions and modify them. And those of us especially that are selling behavioral technologies and physical technologies and coaching skills and things like that really need to understand that, that with minor adjustments, you can take what you're proposing and put it in the decision machine that's already there and get them to decide to do better and new things. And this is how we close contracts. This is how we negotiate contracts. And if you're going to be a good negotiator, you have to be able to read the room. And that's all there is to it. And the skills of doing that are not just charisma. It's just his charisma. Mm-hmm. It's learnable. You can always learn to be a better communicator. And all my books, which I have 36 now, your new book, the reason I wrote the introduction is it's a really good addition. It's not a regurgitation. It's a really good addition to the world of literature about decision engineering, and and being able to understand the consciousness of another person. They ask me to write a lot of introductions, and a lot of times I don't. I have to be honest with you. Sometimes I read the book and I go, this is everywhere. This is just another example of the same old thing. And but when something is unique, then I'll take the time to write an introduction.
And I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, talking about decisions, there is a part in the decision-making process that it's about the state of the other person. And again, there is a lot about how to create the state, maybe even to the other person, but what about your state? One of the things I wanted to make clear is that your state as salesperson or just a persuasive entity, it's as important as the other one. And in fact, you affect the other state, the other person's state with that. And that's not very explained, and I think it's important to be able to influence other people.
Well, if you can't adjust your internal state, then you're always going to be doing things the hard way, right? Then, depending upon how you feel that day, or how, you meet people and at first, they strike you the wrong way or something. You need to adjust yourself so that you go into the right state to be able to gather information, to be alert, and to influence them. Because, a lot of the old sales training programs always started with, say hello, say your name clearly, shake the person's hand. Mm-hmm. It was their weak way of saying, go into a great state so that when they meet you, they come alive. Your ability to make people become more alive and to think more clearly and more quickly and to understand more clearly just makes your job easier. Saves time, makes money. Yeah. And, certainly your book is about having consciousness of what you're doing. And that's always a good idea.
Yeah. And there is that part that, because when you wrote the book, you already seen thousands of probably salespeople. Now I've seen thousands of salespeople. And one of the things that I realize is that state is very affected by fear, by the perception that they have about how the sales is going to go, sometimes because they think that when the client says no, it's saying no to them instead of what the idea of what they're selling. In the same way that people are not afraid of the spider, but the idea of the spider.
It's amazing to me how many times I've been hired by a company to go in and train their sales training first. And they were reticent to make cold calls. They were reticent to just call somebody out of the blue, that would be a potentially. I asked one time, I was at a company and I asked one of their sales forces, I said, who would be the most ideal customer you could have? And he named a company. And I said, let's call the president right now of that company. And he said, well, he said he would never take my calls. And I said, have you tried? Right. And, and I literally found out where the headquarters was, found out who the president was, called the switchboard. And I said, what's his extension? And then I called back and asked to go to that extension. And he answered the phone. He didn't even have a secretary answer the phone. He picked up the phone and I said, you answer your own phone? And he goes, well, my secretary's getting coffee. And I said, well, good, because it's you I wanted to talk to. And then I handed the phone to the other guy, and he took the phone like I had handed him a steak. He went, so I had to take the phone back and talk to him. And, people are as accessible as you are to them. And when you put people at ease and when you make people feel good, of course they want to talk to you. If you're stressed out, it stresses other people out. Yeah. And your internal state is a big, powerful tool that will determine how well you're going to do in this world at everything. Dating, everything. I don't know how many times guys have told me, that they go, I can't meet women. And I go, do you realize how many of them there are on planet Earth? And they're literally everywhere, right? And I said, you may go up and say hello and they may be a mean person and something. That's not about you, that's about them. Just, you need to say to yourself, good God, I could have married this person and put up with this shit all the time. I really dodged a bullet. Thank you very much. And the same thing is true with clients in a sales. If somebody is completely an asshole and unreasonable, move on to the next person.
Exactly.
It's not about you, but it is about you in the sense that you have to be the best of yourself. When you make contact with anybody to negotiate, to communicate, to educate, you need to go into the best state. And then some of them you'll have the tools to communicate with, and some of them you may not want to, but at least it will be you in control and you deciding. And both our books talk about this.
Yeah.
And it's important. I mean, my book has been out for a long, long time. And the book I wrote with John Bevell, Persuasion Engineering. And, it sells as well now as it ever did because there are more and more people finding out that they can do better at what they do. And your book is going to be like that. It's not going to have a quick thing and then disappear. Some books do that. But your book's going to be around for a long time and probably in a lot of languages. It's a good book.
Thank you.
You should buy his book.
So just to finish, and thank you very much for your words. The last question I have for you, it's related with language and the importance that always you put and how those words impact in the person in front of you. And I want to let you know that there's a part of the book that I especially dedicated to the polya patterns and how important it's also the kind of examples you put, the words that you use, how you paint images in the mind of people, and how all of this, it starts with you paying attention to each and single word that you use and how it's affecting the other person.
Yeah, if you don't hear yourself talk, you're bound to say stupid things.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much. And
it's always a pleasure, Zavi.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.